Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Lincoln Way High School Community District 210 Board of Education meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge as you are able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Janet.
Here.
Ms. Janice Doyle. Here. Mr. Kirky.
Here.
Mr. Lucini.
Here.
Mr. Luchetti.
Here.
Mr. Kostick.
Here.
Mrs. Stokes. Here.
All righty. Student Council Presidents, who'd like to go first?
I can go first.
Fantastic. Come on up.
Good evening. It has been an exciting and eventful month here at Lincoln Way Central. Our indoor trick-or-treating event, Halloween Night, was held on October 26th with over 2,000 trick-or-treaters who came through. The canned food items were collected at the door and donated to the New Lenox Food Pantry. As we moved into November, our student council teamed up with the PPS department to celebrate World Kindness Day on November 13th. Together, we shared the message using the theme Sprinkle Kindness, where students were invited to add a sprinkled message of kindness to a donut poster and buy sprinkled donuts, from which the proceeds were donated to Rachel's Challenge, an organization to end bullying and violence in schools and spread kindness. We continued the month with our NHS officer event for all SWSC schools. Students were able to lend a hand to the Teen Bridge Center of Orland Park, a facility where students 7th to 12th grade can go after school and learn life skills and be a part of a community. The following week, we sent our AP Spanish students on a day trip to the Mexican Art Museum in Pilsen to learn more about cultural differences and even enjoy the cultural food. And also, we were able to send our female medical anatomy students to the Go Red Go STEM event held at Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago. This event serves to provide opportunities to educate and inspire young women who wish to pursue careers in the STEM field. In the past week, Lincoln Way Central held a school-wide assembly with 3 guest speakers from the Your Choice Live organization. Their goal is to educate students and positively influence their decision-making regarding drug and alcohol use. This assembly was powerful and well received by all. Additionally, all 3 Lincoln Way student councils teamed up this month to host the SWSC Student Council Conference at Tuscany Falls in Mokina. We hosted all 10 schools in our conference for a great day of motivational speaking, team building, and idea swapping. The motivational speaker, Mr. Eddie Solkowski, shared with us his roller coaster journey and taught an important lesson to all, to not be afraid to fail. Believe me when I say there's not a dry eye in the room. In the coming weeks, Central Student Council is preparing for finals week and the holidays. We will be decorating the AP room the week before winter break, along with giving out hot chocolate to students in the mornings during finals. Additionally, we will continue our tradition of sponsoring a local family in need for the holiday season. I look forward to seeing you all after the new year. Thank you, and go Knights.
Thank you. David, come on up.
Last meeting, I spoke about how the Griffins started a journey and where they ended up. Well, after the journey, all the Griffins did was stuff themselves with amazing accomplishments. Here tonight, I would like to fill your plates on what the Griffins have done. Moving to the main course, the Griffins only have one thing to talk about. This past month, one of our Griffins won a very sought-after arts award, the Best of Show award in the Vote Visual Arts Center High School art exhibit. Jessica Self's colored pencil drawing captivated everyone who looked at it. Her hard work paid off, and East is proud to call her a Griffin. While the Griffins only had a small portion of the main course to share, it's okay, because we are ready to devour the dessert table. This weekend, East will be sending off 2 teams to bring home some slices of victory pie. The girls' swim and dive team will compete at state at New Trier High School, and our football team will compete in the semifinals versus Marist at Marist. We wish both teams the best of luck as they compete. And now, for the best part, fighting over who gets the leftovers. But lucky for us tonight, there's plenty to share. Yesterday, Lincoln Way East, Central, and West hosted the annual SWSC Student Council Conference for the first time in 7 years. At the conference, schools collaborated with each other about what each student council did to make their school great that year. By the end of the day, after dancing, learning, and most importantly, inspiring, each student council was able to bring home portions of ideas back to their schools on how to make the school a better place. This year, not to brag, was the best year to date, simply because of the hard work Lincoln Way put in to make it awesome. Now, Board of Education, before I roll out of this party, I must tell you the last thing the Griffins are doing. Currently, as I speak, students are rushing to the stores to buy all the toilet paper and paper towel rolls they can, because they will be donated tomorrow to the Frankfort Township Food Pantry. Our student council noticed that the food pantry was lacking rolls but overflowing with food, so we decided to change our food drive to a roll drive. And with that, I will let you all digest of what East has done this month. I hope you all have a happy holiday. Thank you.
Thank you. So, no report from Wes this evening. Moving on to public comments. First we have Jamie Cusick. Did I say that correct?
You did.
I've never done this before. Before I start, I just want to say thank you all for your service to our community. My name is Jane Cusick. I am a Mokina resident and a mother of 2 students, and I'm here to address the transportation concern. In case anyone on the board has managed to miss it, there have been public concerns expressed regarding the sufficiency ratings of the I-80 bridges over the Des Plaines River in Joliet. This made headlines beginning in February and is ongoing. The IDOT inspection reports rate the bridges as a 6 and a 7 out of a possible 100. The full reports are 178 pages for eastbound and 256 pages for westbound. I'd be happy to provide soft copies if you'd like to see them. I didn't print them to seem like a waste of trees. The amount of information that IDOT redacted from these reports is certainly concerning. They both contain intolerable structural evaluations. Their words, not mine. IDOT has said that the bridges are safe, but also admits they need repair. There actually is a $5 million repair project currently underway. You might have also seen the International Union of Operating Engineers Local 150 bought billboard space to alert motorists of the deteriorating conditions of the bridges. One read, "Cross at your own risk," the other read, "Bridge ahead in critical condition." The Joliet mayor suggested he would also post similar messages on Joliet streets approaching the I-80 entrance ramps if the state did not show a plan to fix the bridge. Show a plan they did. On November 6th, I attended a public hearing where IDOT presented preliminary plans to reconstruct 16 miles of I-80 from Ridge Road in Minooka to Route 30 in New Lenox. This is a 5-year, $1.2 billion plan, which includes building new bridges next to the existing structures. It looks like a great plan, but it did not give me peace of mind for the next 5 years. Hopefully nothing will happen while this project is underway, but what if it does? If bridges fail, people will die. According to Google Maps, it's a 6-minute detour. I'm only asking that the district err on the side of caution and stay off the bridge. I am not an engineer. I don't know if the bridge is safe or not. My guess is neither do any of you. Is it worth the risk? I did bring this to the transportation director, who, despite my repeated attempts, did not respond. So now I'm asking this school board to consider invoking a temporary policy to keep all school activity buses off the bridge at least until the next inspection report becomes available after the current repair project is complete. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and second up, Emily
Beagle, like the dog.
Beagle.
Just spelled differently. Hello, my name is Emily Beagle. I am a Frankfurt resident, a parent of future Lincoln Way students, and member of Moms Demand Action. I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you so much for deciding to vote no on Resolution 1 at the IASB convention this weekend. As parents, educators, and leaders in our community, we are all responsible for keeping our schools safe. According to an article published on November 19th on Vice.com, and I'm quoting, "The largest study of mass shooters ever funded by the U.S. government was released this week. The study was compiled by the Violence Project, a nonpartisan think tank, and funded by the Department of Justice. They looked at all mass shootings, killings of 4 or more people in a public space since 1966. The data shows that, quote, the shooters typically have an experience with childhood trauma, a personal crisis or specific grievance, and a script or examples that validate their feelings or provide a roadmap. And then there's the 4th thing, access to a firearm. They then drilled down and found that K-12 shooters are described as, quote, white males, typically students of former students of the school with a history of trauma, most are suicidal, plan their crime extensively, and make others aware of their plans at some point before the shooting. They use multiple guns that they typically steal from a family member. This data establishes that the shooter has to have access to guns, and from previous research we know that these guns, 78% of them, are obtained or stolen from their home
or the homes of their relatives or friends. We would like to work together with the school district to address this by hosting a Be Smart presentation so that we can educate staff, parents, and other adults in the community about the safe storage of firearms. I will be following up with all of you via email so that you can have links to the articles I referenced and also the statistics. I'll also include more information about the Be Smart presentation. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we've got some hardware to look at this evening.
Hello, my name is Jessica Lyons, and I'm one of the senior drum majors at Lincoln Way Central.
My name is Josie LaPapa, and I'm a junior drum major from Lincoln Way East.
Hi, I'm Jenna Wilcher, and I'm also a junior drum major from Lincoln Way East.
I'm Karina Rydecki. I'm also a junior drum major, but from Central.
Hi, I'm Madison Tomaszewski, and I'm a senior drum major from Lincoln Way West. And on behalf of the entire Lincoln Way Marching Band, we would like to present the Illinois State Champions Marching Band Championship Traveling Trophy that we received this year. It's because of your support that we are able to have such a successful season and that we are able to do things like go to the 2019 Tournament of Roses Parade and then coming up going to the 2020 Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And if you wouldn't mind, we ask that you would all join us in taking a picture about the trophy.
I'll just go surround it if you could, please. Any parent want to take a picture, you're welcome.
Yeah, I know. I'm maybe like somebody picture, right?
Oh, okay.
Which we do, like splitter. Yeah.
Oh,
And a separate square.
How about that?
Take a shot of great dancing.
All right, everyone look here, I'll take a couple. Do you want to get in and take it from the center? We're good, thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Let's wait for them.
Tom breaks that in because we take care of it.
Right.
Okay. School report cards. Sorry, spends time in each main office. So now it travels throughout the district. And then goes back to Bloomington next fall or next, I think it'll be the last week of October.
To be there.
To be there so it can come right back, yeah. It has its own seat on the bus. Very cool. Yeah. So, next up, a very fun report card.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. So you heard all the exciting accomplishments in both the sports and in the marching band. Tonight I get to brag a little bit more about our academic side. On October 30th, the state of Illinois released a report card for all Illinois high schools, along with the summative designations based on data from the 2018-2019 school year. And, as you probably are aware, all three of our Lincoln Way high schools earned exemplary status for the second year in a row, putting all three high schools in the top 10% of all high schools in the state of Illinois. Quite an accomplishment. So just as a reminder, this is a quick summary of the different designations that are available. Top 10% and with no underperforming groups is exemplary. The bottom 5% is the lowest performing is the bottom 5% with a graduation rate less than 67%. And everybody else kind of fits in between either commendable or underperforming. To be an underperforming school, you have to have an underperforming subgroup. And we can go into all kinds of details, but I don't want to kind of bore you with the numbers of it all because there's plenty of numbers on the next few screens. As we look at this one here, this kind of gives the summary for the state of Illinois. As we look at it, you see that there are 66. Lincoln Way has 3 of those 66 exemplary schools. The commendable schools is 529, and there's really only about 70 that are in the bottom half of recognition for the state. So again, for us being 3 of the 66 earning the exemplary status, our challenge is now to continue to be up in the top 10% year after year after year. As a reminder, the designations are calculated based upon 2 main factors. One is academic success, which is broken down in a whole bunch of subcategories, such as math, science, and ELA proficiencies, along with the graduation rate. And also is the English learners progress proficiency. The other 25% is composed of the school quality and student success. That's composed of 9th grade on track, a climate survey, and chronic absenteeism. So there's a lot of numbers on this page, but this is how the summary comes together, right? They give us a score in each of these categories, and the first number underneath each school in the first column is our raw score. And when you look at, for example, the math proficiency, when you see a 55.69, that means 55.69% of our students met the minimum standards of the state of Illinois, which is a 540 on the math test. That target that they've set there for the state of Illinois is going to change every year. So every year, the percentage that we have that meet that 540 is going to continue to grow. Right? So our job is to make sure that we grow with that so that we can always stay above the state expectations. The overall score, the summative index score down at the bottom, or in the bold in the middle there, is the total of our weighted index scores. And you can see at each of our schools we have an 87, an 89, and an 89. All great scores. The threshold this year was down at 85.7. So we look at that number that we've earned, and we look at the exemplary threshold, and yes, we are above it, but in some cases we're getting a little too close for comfort. So we've got to continue to find ways so that we can continue to improve our numbers so that we can stay exemplary in years to come.
Before you move on there real quick, Dr. Murphy, and I know you're going to touch on it later, but the difference in Central, East, and West on the climate survey, that's a participation rate. That will be corrected this year, I believe, if you speak with Dr. Provost. But that was a participation rate and not necessarily what the climate of the school was. Yes, not the raw score. Correct.
Right.
Go ahead.
Just exactly. That's exactly right. Just a participation rate. All right. So what you see is you see a difference from last year's summative index score to this year's summative index score. And the biggest difference between last year and this year is last year we just counted the students that were in our buildings. This year, when they did the ratings, they counted all students that belong to Lincoln Way. So that also includes the students that are not in the building. So the students that we put out at the McKay Center or at the other outplaced schools. So their performance also had an impact on our overall results. So what we saw across the entire state of Illinois were the scores dropped. Right? And you can see that last year the exemplary threshold was I don't have it up here, but last year it was an 88. So that exemplary threshold dropped a little bit more, but again, all scores across the state dropped. Okay. The next slide breaks down into the different subgroups that we are recognized with. And in order to have a subgroup, we had to have at least 20 students in that category at that grade level in order for it to be considered part of a subgroup. And so that you can see the differences in our buildings. You can see the categories that are recognized for our subgroups up on the screen here. And again, the major difference we see up there is our students with IEPs. Again, bringing back everybody home and counting all of those students as part of our overall score is the major difference that we see up on the screen. So these next few slides I'm going to share with you kind of share the highlights, really. This is the area that we get to brag a little bit more. If we look at this is SAT scores compared to all other Will County high schools. And as you can see here, we are 1, 2, and 3 in the Will County high schools. Taking it just a little bit further. This is also Will County high schools, but what I wanted to compare here was our SAT performance, which is the blue line going across, compared to our funding capacity. That funding capacity is what the state of Illinois says that we should be able to receive that amount of money in order to appropriately meet the needs of our students. And where we are at, it says that we're about 67% adequately funded for a school our size and in our area. And really, there's only a couple schools in the Will County area that are actually above, well, there's only the one that's above 100% adequately funded, and that's Reed Custer. Everybody else in Will County is a little bit below 100% adequately funded. Now, we take this a little bit further. Showing us in Will County is great. You know, us being 1, 2, and 3 as far as our SAT scores are concerned, and showing the difference here is fun, but what I like to do is also bring it out and compare us to some of the bigger high schools in the College counties. So when you look at that, and you look at, again, this is the same chart. It is our SAT scores, which again is the blue line, compared to the funding capacity, which again are the green bars. So if you look at our performance compared to all these other schools and the difference between our performance and our funding capacity, and we're right there with the big hitters in the area and doing great with our scores on the SAT. And again, our funding capacity is much lower than everybody else's. A couple more graphs and charts that I like to show. This one is SAT versus absenteeism. You know, we've always talked about the importance of our teachers being in the classroom, right? Nothing can replace the teacher in front of the students and the performance that they're going to have, rather than the teacher just being there. So when I look at, these are just all Will County schools. When you look at the Will County schools and you look at our student absenteeism, chronic absenteeism is defined as students that are missing more than 10% of the school year, so that's 18 days. And the same definition applies to our teachers. Our students are just over 10%, while our staff is just under 10%, which you look at the chart there and you can kind of see where everybody else is at. Basically, our students come to school and our teachers are here at school to help them, which is a really good thing.
And that counts, maternity leaves are also counted in that absenteeism for the teachers.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Another chart that I like to look at is our graduation rate versus our 9th grade on track. When you put those two things together, you really hope that, you know, we have a good percentage of students that are on track at the freshman level. For Lincoln Way, we're at 95%. Just a little bit over 95% of our freshmen are on track to graduate within the 4 years here at Lincoln Way, which, ironically enough, that's exactly what our graduation rate is. We would love for our graduation rate to continue to grow, to be above that threshold, so we can get those students that maybe we're on that 9th grade on track, that we're at risk. We can find them and work with them, and we have programs in place that we continue to do such things. But I think it's very encouraging knowing that we're right there. Both of them are very level as far as what we've got going on in our school district. So, what do we do with all this data? You know, we take a look at it. There's a lot of information that the school report card has provided us over the years. So what we did, as a team, we started to look at and determine areas of focus. This year, we're going to be focusing on our instructional level courses. So Dr. Fury, Laura Erlenbaugh, myself, the core area DCs, the special education coordinators, and some of the special education teachers sat down and made sure that our curriculum was aligned to what was going on in the regular education courses. So, for example, math, Algebra 1. We wanted to make sure that the topics that we were being covered in our regular education Algebra 1 classes were also the same topics that were being covered in our instructional level courses. Obviously varying for the various needs of our students, so the pieces and parts may be coming out, not going as deep, but making sure that the concepts were still there. So we did a lot of that in aligning and making sure that everything is on track. And they're making some of the adjustments for this year as we speak. So we're looking forward to seeing the benefits of that collaboration continuing on for year to year. Digging a little bit deeper, we know that each of our schools is a little bit unique. So we asked our building administrators to kind of do the same thing. Take a look at all the data and kind of highlight a couple of areas in which their buildings could improve upon, based on the information that's been provided for us. So I'd like to highlight some of the things that each of our buildings are doing here. Now, this is not an all-inclusive list. This is just one, two things that they've kind of highlighted to say that they were working on. So at Lincoln Way Central, on the academic side, they're working with the SAT prep with students that have a 504 or an IEP. And on their culture and climate survey, climate side of it, as Dr. Kingley had mentioned earlier, is Lincoln Way Central is going to work on the 5 Essential survey. As you said, that is purely participation. The information that we receive from that is great. We're able to look at it and make adjustments. But as far as the rating and the score is concerned, we're shooting for 95%, which would earn us all possible points that we could get. So that's Lincoln Way Central. At Lincoln Way East, They are going to continue to look at the achievement gap between our low-income students and our non-low-income students, and try and identify those students and be able to bring them up, the low-income students, and bring them up to levels that are the same as the other students. On the culture and climate side, they're going to be looking at chronic absenteeism to make sure that our students are continuing to come to school and find ways that they can continue to bring them here on a regular basis. At Lincoln Way West, the two areas in the academic side, they're going to be looking at the Illinois Science Assessment Proficiency. That was their lowest performing area. They want to make sure that that's not going to be the case in the future, in the years to come. So they're going to be working on that. And then the culture and climate, they'll be working with 9th grade on track. Again, just identifying those students in various ways to help them along so that they can be successful for a life after Lincoln Way. So with that, are there any questions?
Great.
Can you talk a little bit more about the climate survey for Central? That went out to parents, I'm assuming?
Yes, but the only scores that we get are based upon the student participation. The climate survey, the 5 Essential Survey, is available now for parents to participate in. That link has gone out via email. And then let's see.
Maybe Dr.
Go ahead.
Dave,
go ahead. Explain what we need.
Here's the bottom line. The state said we needed 50% for the scores to count. As soon as we hit 63%, I stopped. I said, okay, we have enough data, not knowing that if we would have went up to 95%, just participating, not the data that was coming in, we would have gained 4 more points.
Wow.
So my
this
bad.
year it'll go in.
Yeah.
This year will go into.
We're going to go for 100%, and they'll take up to 95%. Right.
Fool me once, right?
Yeah.
Good, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Community relations, goal 1. Jen's going to provide a quick overview of what we've been up to in the community relations goal.
Yes, good evening. So we have made it our goal to increase outreach to local stakeholders and continue to promote Lincoln Way and their student and staff achievements and everything that's awesome that our students and staff are accomplishing. And by doing that, we continue to engage in local chamber events and local village events. We belong to 5 chambers of commerce, and each has a monthly networking event that I personally attend, as many as I can. Also, they have annual events for once a year, which oftentimes Dr. Tingley or other administrators will join me at. In the past year, Dr. Tingley has presented at the Manhattan State of the Village and the Tinley Park Realtors Breakfast. We also have had an insert in the New Lenox State of the Village. We have a column in the Frankfort Quarterly newsletter. And just last week, Dr. Tingley sat down with CEO of the New Lenox Chamber of Commerce, Emily Johnson, that will air a brief segment on just an update on where Lincoln Way is today on the New Lenox Community TV station. That'll be airing within the next 2 weeks or so. We're working on the final details. Additionally, we are participating in the New Lenox and Frankfort Complete Counts Committee. The census is coming up next spring, and we are joining with representatives from the village, religious entities, other education, not-for-profits, and more to send a unified message to all of our residents, encouraging as many people as we can to take the census next year. We are in the works of planning our 3rd annual State of the District, where the entire Lincoln Way community is invited to join us as our district administrators present an update on our recent achievements, financials, test scores, and upcoming initiatives. That date will be announced shortly. For Team Asset, we have created a new section on our website to get a little bit more information. Here's an update. What is Team Asset? How does it impact our students? Who is involved? What is the asset of the month? So we created this interactive infographic on our website where you can click around on here and it will take you to different places and explain a little bit about what is Team Asset and what does it do for our students. One of my personal goals this year was to increase our use of video to give glimpses of inside of our classrooms. So these are 2 that I have done just this year. We did one on the Lincoln Way Foundation and where does their grant money go in our classrooms? How does it impact our students? So we did a video there. We also did a short little video of our recent career fair and took a little bit of a more visual look at what students were able to do. Lastly, sitting in your inboxes, you will see an email from me that I just finished a video today. Remember back in April when we had the entire community vote for Mr. Gass to win a $30,000 welding package? Well, we wanted to show the community, what did you get? What were you voting for? So that video just was posted today and this evening, and it just went out to all of your inboxes. Lastly, a brief update on social media. Since I last presented to you last November, we've had an increase of 2,798 followers on our social media accounts alone. We have Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and we continue to really use those channels to push all of our student achievements and accomplishments, while also working with our local traditional media as well, and putting on our website and sending to email or press releases to all of our key constituents in the community. So with that, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Your followers on social media. You got that many followers?
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to the consent agenda, which consists of approval of the regular meeting minutes of October 17, 2019, approval of the closed meeting minutes of October 17, 2019, approval of payroll of October 18, 2019, November 5th, and November 20th of 2019, approval of the District 210 advisory minutes from September 9th and October 21st, 2019, and out-of-state travel. Would anyone like anything pulled from the consent agenda for discussion? With that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
I have a motion, I have a second. Second. The open vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to our action items. Presentation of invoices for October 18th through November 21st, 2019.
Motion to approve the invoices in the amount of $2,827,220.77 dated November 21st, 2019.
You have a motion. I have a second. Second. A motion is second. Any discussion? Thank you. If you open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to the treasurer's report.
Yes, for the month of November, we recorded just over $4 million in revenue. We expended $7.3 million in expense, bringing us to a positive fund balance of $34.8 million. On the cash flow report, we actually had positive variance. We had a stronger tax collection than we had anticipated. One of the things didn't come through, we thought the state would pay another mandatory categorical A payment. They did not, but our AP exam fees and our grant reimbursement was more than we expected, so we ended up more in the long run. As far as cash to date, the district's net cash position is actually $6.5 million better than in the last fiscal year at this time, as the district continues to grow stronger. Revenue is on track, and expenditures are trending slightly below the trend, so things are looking good.
Excellent. With that, I'm looking for a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
So moved.
I have a motion. I have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
Did we receive MCATs in November?
We haven't yet, but it's hard to say when the state will or won't pay.
And then I just had a question on the, one of the things we had kind of had, our budget was down from our actual budget in employee benefits, and looking, we're a third of the year through the year, and everything's trending. It looks like, well, salaries are actually below, like they're 31%, not 33%, but then employee benefits, at least in the education fund, are higher than they were last year, and we have them going down. We have the budget going down 6.1%. Is there something happening in the?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. If you remember, we're taking the premium holiday in December,
Okay.
so that We haven't told the employees yet. But, yeah, so that's why that's going to fall back in track by January.
Okay, so it just hasn't occurred yet.
Right.
And then the MCAS, do those fall into the evidence-based funding?
No, so they fall under the other state.
Okay, so that one's way down. Why is the evidence-based funding like below a third?
Well, we're right on track at 27. That's just on how it flows in. So.
And then the capital outlays, that's just waiting for, I saw the turf got paid this month, but that's just, that money's already, that 3.6 has already been spent pretty much.
Yes, it's just a matter of getting the rest of all the final bills in.
Any further questions? Open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on, student activities reports. Student activities report in your backup material. The two balances were negative at the time. Timing differences, there's been some fundraising and student dues paid, so those are back up now. And then a new account is requested for ski snowboard club at Lincoln Way Central. Consists of approximately 50 students, and the account will be used to manage fundraiser and purchase lift tickets, etc. for the members of the club. So they'll raise funds and then it will be used directly to fund their activity. Entertain a motion to approve the student activities report as presented.
So moved.
Motion? Second. All righty, that, open the vote, please.
The vote is open.
The guy who's been on the snowboard passed away today.
Yeah.
Actually. Kind of weird.
Really?
Yeah. Don't know why. Okay.
The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on, employment report. Rob.
Okay, under employment, we have Bridger Cristioni, parapro. Ask the board to approve this, the employment report as presented.
Back to work here. All right, let that entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Motion is second. Open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on, resignations.
Under resignations, we have Catherine Antis, paraprofessional, Ryan Decker, head boys soccer coach, Lincoln Way East, Sharon Howard, food service, Francis Mariner, paraprofessional, Kevin McLeish, assistant boys soccer East, and Lynn Waller, food service. I ask the board to approve these resignations as presented.
Thank you. Looking for a motion to approve resignations.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Retirements.
Under retirements, we have Michelle Barman, bus driver, planning on retiring December 20th, 2019. Greg Beeler, bus driver, has retired October 25th, 2019. And Jillian Guida, science teacher, Lincoln Way East, will retire June 30th, 2024. I ask the board to approve these retirements as presented.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the retirements? So moved. A motion and a second.
Second.
A motion and a second. You can open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on, freshman seminar exemption, reading exemption. A little quick background material, then I'll turn it over here. We've had reading as a requirement for several years now, and looking at the level of enrollment, we would need board approval either now or board approval when we approve the handbook to change any graduation requirements. We're asking for approval now so we can go forward with the master schedule process that would begin in January once the students come back. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Fury and member Janice Doyle, who have been working on this with District 210 Advisory. Whoever wants to
give the background, and then I'll
Go ahead.
Sure, absolutely. So the proposal is to exempt students with specific criteria, exceptional students who have demonstrated exceptional academic and reading skills, and to exempt them from having to take the freshman seminar or reading graduation requirement. Students who meet, there are two ways that they would become exempt. One would be the score criteria, and that is, the rationale behind that is that these students already possess the high reading level, fluency, and skills that the freshman seminar course develops. The honors courses criteria is the other way that they could be exempt, and that is that by taking both the world history and geography honors course and the English honors course, that they will encounter the same or even similar high reading level, fluency, and skill development that they would be encountering in the freshman seminar course. So those would be the two ways that a student would be eligible to be exempt from taking freshman seminar. We estimate, just by kind of looking at this year's numbers, approximately 22% of our freshmen would be exempt. Now, of course, they're welcome to take the course if they would choose to. And 22% of the students could fall under one of those two categories, and that is pretty consistent with how many students we have in our other honors type courses, algebra honors, biology honors. The STORE criteria that would earn them the exemption was a 30 in reading on the PSAT 8-9 that they take in their 8th grade year. The honors course criteria, they have to qualify for, enroll in, and then of course pass both English honors and world history honors. And to qualify for each of those courses, they need a combined reading and English or reading and social studies score from that PSAT of a 52. If they qualify for both of them, and they enroll in both of them and eventually pass, of course, then they would be eligible for the exemption. Additionally, students would not be allowed to waive, or parents would not be allowed to waive students into the honors course and then get the exemption. Of course, they're welcome to waive their students into those honors courses, but they would not be eligible for the exemption without one of those two criteria. So that's pretty much the idea. Again, like Dr. Tingley said, looking for opportunities. We did bring this before the District 210 Advisory Committee.
Yeah, we discussed this for, I think, 3 meetings, and the committee overwhelmingly agreed that this is almost like a repeat for certain kids. So the kids who get the 30 or above are well above grade level already and likely don't need these skills. The kids who enroll in the old honors courses will be receiving the same set of skills, so this is a redundant class, basically. Also, too, with this district having a 7-period schedule and 6 requirements, students aren't allowed to take an elective freshman year unless they take 0-hour or summer school. So that would open up an elective to those students as well, which will help our electives.
Any discussion, questions?
I agree with that. I just think we have to make sure that we make it perfectly clear the waive, if you waive your student into classes that does not. So I think that has to be on everything. Just to make sure. Yes. I just think that we have to make sure that that's, I agree, highlighted.
Well, maybe when they get those folders on the freshman night, it would say if you're eligible or you're not eligible, and then the waiving you would just not be eligible.
And those letters come from the district office. They don't come from the individual buildings. We do all of those right here. So each of those will be bold if you qualify. That's a very good point.
I have a quick question. Just so in order to actually waive out of it, you need to enroll both or qualify, and you also have to pass. So let's say for some odd situation that one of the students or a student doesn't pass one of those classes, then would they find themselves in freshman seminar their sophomore year?
They would. And that's not that unusual. When we have transfer students come in, because our freshman seminar reading is a graduation requirement, We do waive it for junior and senior students from time to time, especially depending on the courses that they're coming into. But even when sophomore students transfer into our building, into our schools, and we do enroll them in the freshman seminar curriculum because we believe that much.
Any further questions, discussion? All right, with that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the freshman seminar exemption criteria as presented.
So moved.
A motion, and a second.
Second.
A motion and a second. Open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
That's right. Moving on, workers' compensation renewal. Mr. Faulkner.
Yes, in your board packets, information for our annual workers' compensation. Historically, this has been on a calendar year for some reason. What you'll see in the proposal tonight is we're proposing that we go ahead with the county risk management trust, and we would go for an 18-month premium, and which would then bring us on to a fiscal year end with the rest to correspond with our budget and school financials. We did went out and we had 4 bids this year. We solicited 2. Administration solicited them on our own, which would be the CLIC, which we're property casualty with them already, and then the WICSIT, which is the ISDA affiliated school board program. WICSIT was the lowest, but they've had a little financial trouble recently, so we thought we should steer clear of them at the moment, and that's why we're going with the second lowest, which would be the county. Any questions?
It requires a 1-year minimum commitment.
Yes.
So we're doing 18 months.
We're doing 18 months, but it's not an issue. So if we were, the way their bylaws read is you have to give 90-day notice. So if we were just going with the 1 year, it actually wouldn't be possible. You would have to have a 2-year commitment because you have to have 90-day notice. So it's kind of a tricky wording in there, but with 18 months, we're fine. Then once we become a member, if we decided in a future time, we would be like we're doing with the current IPRF. We just have to give 90-day notice and we can be out of that trust.
So I was going to ask, do we give 90 days notice?
We did.
Okay.
So anticipating that we were going to go out for multiple bids, we did give an accepted letter of withdrawal. So we are squared away to withdrawal from the IPMRF trust.
Are there any other risks with switching providers?
No, these are fully funded, so, and this new one is, this trust is non-assessable, so if we go in with them for 18 months and then for some reason, you know, we're not happy with that, they can't come back and assess us more. The premium is considered full payment, regardless of what your risk or actual experience might end up. So it's fully funded from that perspective.
If we have any open claims or anything right now,
we do.
No need for tail coverage or anything like that coming in
well,
these different funds.
We do have. Okay, so yeah, speaking with our broker, so we do have ongoing claims, and the way the policy is written with IPMRF, they will have to continue to service and manage those as part of that previous contract with them.
So we would have no exposure depending on that.
No.
Claim.
Were all the bids with the same specs? Like I saw that it was hard to tell if the one that that you're recommending did have the employer's liability limit. I didn't see that on some of the other ones. Are they all $2.5 million?
They can range $2.5 million or $3 million, but the state specifies a minimum of 2.5. So they all met that. And then as far as like comparability, we provided the exact same payroll audit to all of the 4 vendors.
And there's no deductible?
No.
the fund we were using, the Illinois Public Risk Fund, was 25% higher than the one you're recommending. Is there any like logic as to why something we've been using for a decade now was getting a 25% premium?
No,
Or
other
you
than-
provided a 25% discount, I guess.
Right. You know, our mod rating is when they take a look at your claim ratio, anything below 1 is, you know, you're doing great, meaning you're spending less than your premium. Anything above, you know, is, you know, not so great. We're at 1.03 because we have one large claim that has been out there. I think it's just how those different vendors are proceeding, or as you say, taking the risk on, well, they think that claim is going to be a lot longer, or they think we're about to settle it. We're hopeful we're getting to the end of that claim. But, you know, IPMRF is maybe looking at it and saying, well, we're afraid that that's more of a trend, you know, going to continue. I really don't, you know, hard for me to say.
That was one of the things I was going to ask, the experience modifier on the new one. What are they basing that on, since we weren't with them previously? Because that's, I mean, looking at it, there's an experience modifier, a schedule modifier, and an expense modifier that are basically taking this new one that you're recommending down to this level.
Right. So the way workers' compensation works is there is a national organization that tracks and sets your mod rating. So everybody has an independent mod rating that's set by this national organization. That doesn't change for anybody. All 4 entities know our mod is 1.03, that's what it is. What gets down to it is what discounts or incentives they offer you. That's where they can do the pricing. If you look at IPMRF, they historically, their incentive was, okay, they did this service grant. Well, you basically had to re-up with them to get the grant. Now, we put all the paperwork in early, so we got the grant, so that we'd be in a situation where we could still go out to bid. So we got last year's grant, but you know, you have to be on your toes to get that process. But that's how they can adjust their pricing. But the mod rating is the mod rating for all. It's, you know, it's just a number given to us by a national organization based on our experience.
What's the difference between the schedule modifier and the expense modifier? Because those were below 1.
Right. I would have to, I apologize, I do not know that exactly.
Because I'm looking at the bid, that's how this one came
So,
down.
like I said, they can offer different discounts or different adjustments. You know, I'd have to just talk with our.
That's what I mean. It's a bid. Then my last thing that I saw in there was volunteers are covered. How would that? Does that just mean if someone's volunteering in the schools, like is working in the concession stand or something?
Yeah, because it could be, you know,
that just doesn't seem like it would be a work.
Well, like if a parent is volunteering at a basketball game and burns himself with popcorn or something, then it's covered because it's on the site and they're at a school activity. So it's mainly that covers those parent volunteers. Because our coaches, we actually have on liability, they sign a $1 contract, everything. It's the parents that we don't have on contracts that are working at concession.
Have we talked to someone who's used this group before?
Yeah, well, Jolly 86 uses them. They, like I said, they've been around for a good number of years. Gosh, I think they got 333 members, 98% retention rate, 72 million in premiums. I can't remember exactly when they were initially formed, but it's been a number of years. And yeah, Jolie at 86 uses them. That's the closest one. I didn't talk to any others. But one of the things that we went over with them was just their philosophy and helping you follow on claims. You know, we've been pleased with IMPMRF, but on one aspect, I think they could be a little more aggressive, a little more, like I always have to call them. It'd be nice if they called me, but typically if I got to get something rolling, I have to call them. And, hey, what about this? Or we're going to do something, what's going on? And, you know, our agent, we're working through Tim, you know, he said that these guys are very proactive, go through on a regular basis, go through our reports with us. So that would be a nice thing.
How many workers' comp claims do we have in a year typically?
Well, serious ones, only a couple, you know, once, but, you know, we have small, you know, so maybe like, I don't know, what, 10?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting splashed with oil in the kitchen on little burns. Unfortunately, then there are some bigger ones, but no more than a dozen a year, and maybe only one or two or anything kind of serious would be some major expenses.
Last year there was one.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Is there like a rating agency for these or anything that, you know, your reason for not choosing the one was the idea of they're not in good financial health, that just, you know, that the other one wasn't good financial health. That could be relative based on what?
Well, I looked at what their retained earnings were, you know. So the Grist County, they have 34 million in reserves. I realize percentage-wise, you know, what is that? It's like 30-some%, whatever. But you're looking at, you know, 34 million, the reinsurance they buy, et cetera. That's a lot of money to have to burn through in one bad year. Whereas I looked at, you know, I know as percentage-wise, you know, Wixit, you know, they're up to 1.4 million. Well, that's great. And it might represent, you know, out there only have like 15 million in premium or something like that. But 1.4 million, it's just not very much money. And they were negative in 2016. So
there is no independent rating of these?
No, because they're not insurance companies.
I understand, but I'm just wondering if anybody goes in, because you hit my point, was that you throw a number in there, but, you know, if there's 10,000 agencies involved in that, and there's 34 million, is that really, you know, enough of a cushion, to use your term, to make that work? And then just one final question. Two of them were represented by an agent. Were the other two represented through an agent?
No, they don't have agents per se.
So there's no way to go direct to?
Right, so we dealt directly with Click and directly with Wixit.
But the ICRM doesn't allow you to deal directly with them? You have to go through an agent?
You know, we've always worked through our local agent. I don't know that answer.
Further discussion? Then I entertain a motion to approve the workers' compensation renewal as presented.
So moved.
I have a motion, I have a second.
Second.
Go to the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Moving on to our shrinking need for tax anticipation warrants.
So let me just give a quick overview and then you can read the resolution. So we're working with Old Second Bank. They've provided us a fixed rate of 2.45%. We're asking the board to approve the resolution to authorize the issuance of not to exceed $16 million in tax anticipation warrants based off of the 2019 tax levy. This is due to our lack of liquidity. These are educational fund bonds, and there's also a tax escrow, or what we call tax intercept, where 35% 25% of our tax levy would automatically go into a escrow account to use to repay these bonds. And they would not go any further than October of 2020.
And we all think that the risk outweighs the benefit of going with a variable rate over a fixed. Savings just isn't there. Potentially.
We going with the
Fixed
fixed
over
over
That's
there.
right, we're going with a fixed over there, I'm sorry, yeah, fixed over there. The risk outweighs the reward, potential reward. No, the risk of the variable rate outweighs the potential reward.
Is the $16 million based on what you've seen so far, or what end of November, still a good number?
Yes.
We're not going to hit some wall that all of a sudden we're going to have to go back and want that to be a bigger number?
No. I mean, you look at the current cash flow, we've got, of course, taxes and our evidence-based funding, our two largest sources, both rolling in just as anticipated. The other things is just, as far as the expenditures, that flows pretty well, tracks where we're estimating. So right now we're on track to only need about 13 million. And so that gives us 3 million cushion.
We're still expecting only to have to draw these in February, right? And we should be able to pay them off by June.
That is correct. We're on, the way things are tracking right now, we anticipate not drawing until February.
And certainly paying off that in the fiscal year.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's getting smaller, that window that we're actually using, decreasing as we expect.
Right.
Pay the interest for 4 months.
Are there any other options other than a traditional commercial bank to fund tax anticipation warrants?
Joe Kirkland's piggy bank?
Yeah, right.
Not necessarily. I'm just curious that, in your report here, you went to 5 different traditional commercial banks, but in other areas like you did with
4 years ago, and that's a good point, Joe. Actually, we discussed that with Bob Lewis. Next year, as we anticipate the amount to be even quite a bit more or less moving the insurance fund, there may be a possibility of us going to competitive bid because of the timing of those municipalities having cash on hand.
Later in the fiscal year.
It'll be later in the fiscal year, number one, and number two, we're looking at possibly a 60-day borrow instead of 120 days.
Maybe less than $1 amount.
Correct. So we may be able to piece together, 3 $2 million tax anticipation warrants with 3 different municipalities at a different rate. And that's something we'll definitely look at next
Because
year.
what we did work wasn't a high single-digit number for the amount.
It was a couple $1 million, and it was for 45 to 60 days, I think is what it ended up being. So yes, that's something we'll definitely be able to entertain because of the window being much shorter. That's a good point.
That's why I asked about the size of the TAWs as well.
Yep.
That was done out of
The only thing
extraordinary need.
Yes, urgent, I guess we'd say.
The only thing I would say about that is we'll have to weigh the cost-benefit ratio with our legal. When you do multiple issuers, a fixed amount, then we're going to have more legal costs. So we'll have to we'll bring it to you for your.
But once we do that, it pretty much becomes templated. Within reason, I get that somebody's going to change a whereas to a therefore because we got enough of them on the board.
Yeah. Well, so far I've not seen that. Anyway, we'll go ahead.
No, it's something we will look at.
Took you a while, wasn't it? Something to pick up on that.
It hurt my feelings, Joe. Any further discussion or questions?
We need to go ahead and read it.
Yes, we would need to have the secretary just read the paragraph for resolution 219-16 on the 3rd page, just that top paragraph, please.
Resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $16 million tax anticipation warrants in anticipation of the collection of taxes levied for the year 2019 by the Board of Education of Lincoln Way Community High School District Number 210, Will and Cook Counties, Illinois, for educational purposes, the sale of said warrants to Old Second National Bank, the deposit of said taxes directly into a designated escrow account,
and the execution and delivery of a tax escrow agreement in connection therewith.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Fantastic. Moving on, bond debt restructuring.
We have Bob Lewis here to handle everything.
Thank you. So what you have before you tonight for consideration is the bond parameters resolution that would permit us to proceed with the concept plan that the board would move forward with. Keep in mind that this is only impacting those first 2 years, as we went over in great detail the last couple of meetings. So the parameters that we've set forth, and here's the maximum term to match what we had shown you. Maximum par amount is enough to refund the, I'm blanking out which series it is, the 2009 series, I believe.
Yes.
And it also sets forth a not to exceed levy. A question before the meeting, that levy is set to cover the principal payments those first couple of years, and you see a small $450,000 for several years and get a bigger one at the end. That $450,000 is meant to cover the interest payments that would be associated with that portion of the principal that is being extended out. So what happens then is this document is filed with the county clerk's office along with the notification of sale, which contains within it the certificate of reduction in taxes for the bonds that, or so it reduces this parameter levy to the actual levy. So that would be the only thing that's levied and collected. Also will be filed at closing is a document that will abate all the remaining bond levies for the series that we're refunding to wipe them off your books, because you don't want to obviously continue to levy for those because those bonds will no longer exist. The other thing that this document, another thing that this document does is sets forth how the bonds will be sold, and it gives a variety of different options in there, but essentially what we're recommending, well, basically it's options to follow the recommendation of PMA, and what our recommendation is, we've talked before, is to do a negotiated sale where we identify an underwriter. Given your credit situation, negotiated sale is one that's most appropriate. We did send out an RFP for underwriters, and I believe a summary of that RFP is provided to you. After examining the proposals and discussing the results of the proposals with Mr. Kaufman, we've jointly recommending that the board engage Raymond James as the underwriter for the bonds. Not only did they have the lowest fee, the fee is stated per $1,000 of bonds issued at $4.25. You'll notice that JP Morgan's at $4.19. Well, they have an additional requirement to have a $20,000 legal cost of underwriters counsel, so that takes them over that. But I just seldom recommend that you just go with the lowest fee, because there's a variety of different factors we look at. We look at the recent experience and selling bonds similar to yours. Raymond James is the #1 school underwriter in Illinois right now, based off of the par amount of bonds sold. They also have experience with your elementary district, or one of your elementary districts, New Lenox 122, and have been involved in their restructuring process. In addition, I'm trying to blinking out on what the other reason was. Oh, I know. Pardon? Go ahead. Oh, the other thing that we look at is indicative interest rates. Now, sometimes people get confused. They'll see that we give this estimated AIC. That's a composite rate of what they're proposing for the rates and their fee. And in a competitive bid, that's actually how you determine the winner in a competitive bid. And this is a negotiated sale. The rates aren't determined yet. There's nothing you can lock in. It doesn't work like the mortgage market. Just sort of give us an idea of who the outliers are, because we ask them for indicative interest rates. Who's being too aggressive, trying to be the best liar, if you will, and And trust me, I've had other people accuse certain firms of doing that from time to time. And you also find outliers are, who's being way too conservative with your credit, and sort of seeing where everyone else is sort of coming out on their assessment. You'll see that 3 firms, Raymond James, KeyBank, JP Morgan, came out very similarly in how they analyzed where your bonds would sell in the market. So I felt comfortable that they were within range and sort of confirming having multiple large underwriting firms coming up with a similar assessment. What will happen from here then is looking at the timeline. The board adopts this tonight. Next week we'll be circulating the initial draft of the preliminary official statement. That's what's circulated to, will ultimately be circulated to potential investors. We go through a rating rehearsal at the beginning of December and have a rating call. Now we just went through a rating presentation back in August, I believe, when you were upgraded. So this will just be an update from that. We will have the actual audit in hand. So there'll be some updating that we need to do. Also be talking about the budget and how FY20 is going. And then we'll finish up that preliminary official statement. The working group will be reviewing that, get the ratings around mid-December, distribute the preliminary official statement in the mid to late December, around December 20th. And then we anticipate pricing the bonds in the first full week of the new year. I think one of the things I talked to you about when I was out here last time was historically a good time to get to market is that first full week after the new year, because people have just come back the prior week and there's not a lot of volume in the market. Sometimes you can jump out and get some attention. I think you have a good story to tell while your rating is low. The rating report leads really well, and you're definitely going to see the arrow is up. Raymond James and a couple other firms talked about going to your current investors who maybe are not as saturated as maybe they'd like to be, because your current investors have held on to your bonds, which tells me they had confidence. At least some of them maybe just didn't want to sell them because they don't want to take a loss when your rating was lower, but they also at least had the confidence that you were going to recover your credit profile and have been willing to hold on to those bonds. They're going to want to continue to hold on to those bonds because the anticipation is your rating will rise as you continue to do the good things you've been doing. So there may be others that are interested in buying these bonds, trying to get in on something that's probably going to have a higher credit rating in the future. So while selling your bonds will have its challenges because of the low underlying rating, I think your overall economic profile, your base, your rating's built off your economy, is strong. So as long as they have confidence that you have done what you need to do in your finances, I anticipate that you should not have a whole lot of difficulty with this sale.
Okay, having said that, what is the Armageddon scenario that we go down this process and it doesn't go the way that you project?
Well, we have until March 1st to do something, and earlier this year we sold a similarly rated issue for North Chicago 187, and
similar dollar amount.
Theirs was a little larger. Now, North Chicago has completely different challenges. They have the naval base there, which is the downside. They're not getting as much federal aid. Their economy is not as strong. Their arrow's not necessarily pointing up as much as your arrow is pointing up. And while it was challenging to get that done, it was done. It was done at very attractive levels for that credit. So I don't anticipate an issue.
I understand, but what if it did happen? What if something geopolitical blew up or something happened? What if we make this move? What's the downside?
That's my question.
The downside of passing this tonight?
Yeah.
Well, the downside is that, if you don't pass this tonight, you're going to have a big increase in your debt levy next year. It's going to go up $7 million.
We get the taxpayer downside. What's the bond market downside?
Well, it ends up costing more than we're estimating, I suppose. But if you recall, we were conservative in our analysis. So the worst time in my career in this bond market was when Lehman Brothers blew up. I don't know if we're anticipating anything of that magnitude, but if that happens, you're not the only one that's having difficulty in the market. Another reason why I'm targeting early January is because you need to do something by the end of February. Okay, even when Lehman Brothers blew up, the market wasn't that disjointed for 2 months. It was for a couple weeks, and then things settled down and rates started to come back down. You can't protect against every potential risk, but I feel comfortable giving the timeline. That's one of the reasons why we're doing it. Another reason we're doing it in early January instead of doing it in mid or late February, when that's it. You have to do it by then or you're toast.
So my question that you highlighted North Chicago, in your notes here, Ted Mesereau has done some of the lower rated Illinois bonds, and obviously you might have been involved with the North Chicago when it's mentioned here. Is there any benefit or any weight that you put on that for Mesereau as an underwriter?
Yeah, we did consider them strongly. One of the things that, as we reviewed the proposal, that struck us as odd is when we talk about bonds, we're talking about being priced to the AAA index, and that's what you see in the memo on the third and fourth page. You look at, for instance, J.P. Morgan and the blue box, and I'm focusing on the 34 maturity. That's where you have the most risk. The two shorter maturities aren't outstanding very long. The blue box, they had 90 over the index. KeyBank had 140, but KeyBank was proposing a discount bond structure, which sort of plays out when you look at the green box, similar to what J.P. Morgan was suggesting. Blaylock Van was at 0.95, so again, you have two firms, J.P. Morgan and Blaylock Van, similar spread to the index. Then you have Raymond James at 0.8. So those three firms are all suggesting a premium bond structure with 5% coupon. Spread similarly, 0.8 to 0.95. It's sort of in the ballpark, because not a lot of AAA credits are sold that you can look at in the market all the time and see how those are being priced. Mesereau spread the 5% coupon 150 over the index, what struck us odd about that is the North Chicago deal that was done earlier this year was, I think it was done about 125, 130 over the index. So it's like, well, why would Lincoln Way have, I would think, if anything, Lincoln Way's spread would be lower for what I was saying before, is because your foundation of your rating is much stronger than the foundation of their rating, the economy. So why they would spread yours higher was perplexing.
Did you ask them?
No, I did not ask them because in my experience, whenever I call underwriters, whether they're being too aggressive or too conservative, they give you, especially on the more aggressive side, they give you an answer like, oh, I'm pretty sure we can get that done, and you go to price it and they don't get it done. They come up with some sort of explanation. If Mesereau had been, if the other firms were closer to Mesereau, and you only had one firm, if Raymond James only went at 0.8, I'd be worried, concerned about going Raymond James. But the fact you had two other firms pricing it similarly makes me confident in theirs. Plus, you're not just going to sell with your rating. You're going to easily be able to get credit enhancement from Build America Mutual or Assured Guarantee that will allow these to sell with a AA rating. So it's going to be a AA rated bond with an underlying rating of Baa3. So unfortunately, you have to get that credit wrap in order to secure the lowest interest rate possible.
What about issuance in that? Is there a lot of school issuance in like early part of the years typically? Is that?
Well, we're the #1 financial advisor to schools in Illinois, and we have no other sales scheduled that week. So I can tell you that. And I can't predict what other people are doing, but my experience is that typically opens up strong that week, and you never know what might happen. Just like we were selling, what might happen that week in economic news, like a couple of days ago, was it yesterday? We're going into the market with a bond sale, and what happened overnight, or the day before, the Senate passes a resolution to support the Hong Kong activists, and the House then approves that. Well, that caused a flight to quality, so Treasury rates fall, so it gave a great tone for selling bonds yesterday. We never expected that when those type of events happen, so you never know what might happen, what tweet might come out over the weekend. I was pricing a bond a couple of weeks ago, and that was when on Thursday, the news came out that looks like China and the U.S. are going to enter into a trade agreement. It's going to phase 1 tariff reductions. And then over the weekend, Trump's like, I don't agree to that. He said that publicly. Well, come Monday, rates started going back down after having climbed up to Thursday and Friday. So, wow. So I can only go by what we've seen historically, but you can have little isolated events that may cause that expectation to be different.
And the state penalty, per se, is that remain roughly the same
Yeah, I think
time, it isn't getting any better or worse.
it improved slightly, I think, when Pritzker was elected, because then people took a deep breath and like, okay, no more of these no budget years of Rauner and the General Assembly. There's definitely, I mean, there was some improvement. There definitely is a lot more room to go with the expectation. I think the market initially assumed that you're going to have a lot of harmony there, but a lot of us know that from what we've been hearing out of Springfield, is next year might be a difficult session, and because we're hearing a lot of proposals coming out from property tax freeze still, and as a way to get people to support the fair tax, and with the potential for a pension shift. So if that news cycle starts to heat back up in January, February, that might, in my opinion, might cause the penalty to worsen a little bit, which is another reason to get ahead before Springfield gets active in January and start hearing more of these proposals coming out in the press. Another thing I would touch on, if you read my notes, is J.P. Morgan had suggested, and some issuers have been doing this too, that bonds that are callable, that you might be able to get savings locked in on, you might want to do them on a taxable basis today. And in fact, taxable volume is up way, a lot nationally, because there's a lot of issuers choosing to do taxable refundings. I would sincerely advise against taking action on that for a couple reasons. 3 reasons. One, you have a natural hedge already built in by waiting, because if you wait, you do the refinancings on tax-exempt basis. We also have the expectation that your credit rating is going to improve between now and the next time you have to sell bonds, so that's a natural hedge. You continue on the trajectory that you're on. And the third thing is, some of those bonds that you might refinance on a taxable basis, we hope you might be able to pay off with cash if you're able to sell the fourth high school. Fourth high school. And so I would not avail yourself of that idea.
What does your note mean here when it says, this is in J.P. Morgan, target current holders of bonds and those that are underweight?
Yeah, that was what they had in their proposal. That in their estimation, some of your current holders probably could desire or tolerate to hold more of your bonds in their portfolio. And so that's what they mean by underweight.
Underweight, our issue in their whole portfolio.
Right.
Any other questions or discussion?
So this is a parameter resolution, basically, that.
Oh yeah, I should have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as long as so what the board is doing is it's delegating its authority by approving this to approve that the bond sale can be approved subject to meeting these parameters by the board president and by either Mr. Kaufman or Dr. Tingley. You have to have one elected official sign off and then just one of the administrative officials as well. And then they're obligated then to come back and report to the board the results of the bond sale. So this does not give PMA the authority to do this and not come back and consult with the people of the board.
But this sets the
parameter.
Yes. Changes the whole paradigm.
Beth, would you like to read the resolution?
Resolution providing for the issue of not to exceed $23,100,000 general obligation refunding school bonds for the purpose of refunding certain outstanding bonds of the district, providing for the levy of a direct annual tax sufficient to pay the principal and interest on said bonds, and authorizing the proposed sale of said bonds to the purchaser thereof.
We have a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
Oh, do we have to approve the overriding?
No, because...
the amendment. I'm sorry, the amendment. No, that's reworded. Yeah, it's administratively handled that.
Yeah.
So moved.
Motion to have a second.
second.
Motion and a second. Can open vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Moving on, a little housekeeping to picks up this quad plus tax abatement agreement that we previously discussed.
Right, that's exactly what it is. It's just a little housekeeping. When I went to file that abatement with the county just would like the more specific agreement. So we're not reinventing the wheel here. This agreement was actually also passed by New Lennox 122, some other, so the county was happy with that. It spells out the terms we agreed to. We just need to have it voted upon.
Thank you. With that, I entertain a motion to approve the revised abatement agreement as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? You can open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on. We need a new van.
This was the highlight of Mr. Kaufman's last week, so I'll let him go ahead and present it.
Interesting trade exception.
Yeah, I swear it takes longer to buy a van than to borrow $16 million. But anyway, with that being said, given our new 9 driver's ed cars, we now have 6 surplus cars that we want to get rid of. So we went out on the search. We found a used van with Phillips Chevrolet, and we would recommend trading in the 6 used vehicles for the 1 used van, which still has remaining warranty, bumper to bumper, and remaining powertrain.
What color?
And what is the district mail van used for? Obviously mail.
Travels from campus to campus and transportation.
Right, makes deposits.
Banks, bank deposits as well.
And I should mention the old van, the reason that's not being traded, that's actually going to be repurposed and used for our plumbing vehicle, for our maintenance guys.
So they'll have the routers and the different equipment.
Oh, my gosh.
With that, I would approve a motion. I'm looking for a motion rather to approve the district mail van purchase as presented.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any other questions about what color it is? Or anything else?
No.
Excellent.
I'm good.
With that, if you open the vote,
The
please.
vote is open.
Trust you.
The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you very much. Moving on to our informational items. 843.
Well, Member Stokes will be participating from here on out. The minutes are in your backup materials for your review. Nothing to speak of. We have had this week, there's been some issues with physical restraint and timeout. And so there's been some different documents sent to us from the Illinois State Board of Education. So we're working through those right now. Right now, all Lincoln Way schools are completely in compliance. District 843 is in compliance. We are not using timeouts or physical restraints as a punishment. It is used if a child or student is in a position to harm themselves or others. We will wait for the formal guidelines on training, but right now all of our parapros and teachers in those programs are trained. But there'll be some more to follow. There was a district that, an isolated incident where it was not used properly, and so we'll continue to monitor that. I know that's something that Sarah's communicating with the area superintendents and I believe the board for 843 as well. So we'll continue to monitor that as we go.
Excellent. Moving on. No FOIA request this month?
No FOIA request. Dr. Murphy has plenty of time with this hand.
Building and grounds.
Building and grounds report is in your backup materials if anyone has any questions. If not tonight, at any time, obviously just email Mr. Wilkie and he'll get those answers to you.
Community relations.
Once again, also in your backup materials for your review.
Asset of the month.
Asset of the month is resiliency. Provides students with the strength and fortitude to confront the overwhelming obstacles that they are bound to face in life. Be available whenever and wherever your kids want to talk. At school, identify at-risk students, which we continually strive to do a better job of. You can never be too diligent at identifying those students who are at risk, both academically or emotionally. And then in the community, sponsor discussion nights for parents and teens, publicize the topics in advance. We have that forum on vaping. We've had forums on suicide and self-harm, and those are items that we'll continue to address with our student population and our community.
District 210 advisory.
So we have had 2 meetings since the October board meeting because of the holiday that week. We have really been discussing 4 topics for the last few meetings. We discussed obviously the freshman seminar, or freshman reading course exemption, which we just took care of tonight. The second thing that we kind of closed out and completed our discussions on are the exemption for students who are in an AP course and sign up to take the AP test. They would be exempt from their second semester final exam. Again, redundancy issue. If the goal of an AP course is to take and pass the course, then that should be pretty much the final exam, essentially. Also, most of the final exams are practice AP tests anyway, so you would take one the first week of May, the actual AP test, and then a couple weeks later you would take a final that mirrors the test that you already took at the end of the course. Any questions on that one?
I have a quick question. So, if you took the AP exam, you wouldn't take the final?
Yes, you will be exempt from that final.
Okay, yes. But you don't get the results until?
Well, yeah, the final, your grade would just be based on your semester grade, and then the exemption would be, so instead of 80-20, that 80 would result in whatever grade you got.
Okay, understood.
Yeah. The other thing that we continued our work on is we need to adjust the cum laude designations. When we changed the way that we weighted the honors and AP courses, they did not match with the current way that we designate those. So this year, seniors are still on the old system, so we need to address it before the juniors start and complete their 7th semester so that we can adjust those designations. But we didn't come to any sort of conclusion on that yet. The last thing that we continue to discuss, and I feel like we're kind of all over the place with this because we don't really think that there's one single plan that would address all of these different issues, is to talk about incentives to address chronic absenteeism. So we do have chronic absentee students, and those are for a wide variety of reasons: vacations, extended illness, anxiety, depression, people who are hospitalized, things like that. So there isn't necessarily a one-fit sort of thing that would address all of those issues, but we are continuing our discussions on that as well. So obviously that's part of the way that we are rated.
Excellent. Anything else for that? Enrollments.
Included in your backup materials are just an updated enrollment. We did not put any projections together. These are just actual students in seats today. No surprises. The trend that we have been projecting continues. As I said, no changes in what we've seen here the last couple of years.
Excellent. 2020-21 school calendar.
I believe we're already talking 2020-21, but we are. Made some adjustments to the calendar. This is proposed. This is a draft, obviously, first reading. We would like to begin next school year with 2 institute days to start the school year. We would have, on the 17th would be an all-district day, have our grand opening, and then have district meetings, and then the second day we'll provide meetings in the building. Principals will be able to have a meeting, then department meetings within the building, and then some individual and or group work. We would take, similar to what we did this year in November, parent-teacher conferences the week of Thanksgiving, and then take Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off. After much deliberation with the feeder districts, it was agreed that we would all propose to take 2 weeks off for the winter break, as we currently do. That would put us off the 21st all the way through. Spring break would be the last week beginning March. We would also then take the 5th, that Monday, off. We are anticipating the SAT being April 14th, which would give us a week and a half back prior to that test date. And then final exam starting May 25th, with graduations the 26th, 27th, and 28th.
Puts us before Memorial Day for the first time instead.
Puts us on more Memorial Day, granted snow days.
We don't snow.
Snow or cold. So this calendar aligns with the IHSA calendar. We always look at the IHSA calendar to try and align the start of the school year, and this is consistent with what we've done in the past. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to get those to me prior to the December meeting, or I will ask for approval, and then we will get it posted.
Just a question on the semester, the differential in the semester.
Yes,
Yeah, I know, but this seems like it's a little bit more. It's 11 days difference. I don't know if that.
What was it this last year, 10?
10 days this
It was
year.
10 this last year. Dr. Schmidt's solution was to do 4 days of SAT prep in the second semester, and I agree with that. We've always fought anywhere 6 to 10 days, so that's a good point. My preference, Chris, would have been to go to the 22nd of December. Go ahead and have 2
Well, you
days.
have this year. You have 2 more days in that week as the Labor Day, so Christmas Eve isn't until Friday. That's the only reason I was asking.
Yes,
It seems like it's a little bit.
And I propose starting break on the 23rd of December, and got beat up pretty good by the feeder superintendents who like to have those 2 full weeks, which I understand, but for us that would have been better. I've shared this with the union leadership, and that was one item they brought up, but then they also countered that with, well, we can do more prep work for standardized testing in the second semester. So that is a good point.
Yeah, I think the only thing that really it affects is those semester AP courses, like AP
Correct.
Government, AP Econ, because
Yep.
then they get 11 more instructional days leading up to their tests. So
Absolutely.
depending on which one. But I think regular courses just adjust naturally.
Yes. That's a good point. Superintendent's note policies. Well, the policies, first year with, when you go from Republican governor to Democrat governor, you're going to have a lot of policy change. And so all of those are in there with some notes. Nothing alarming. Footnotes and policy changes. We will continue to be a drug-free workplace, regardless of the legalization of marijuana or any other substance. We will continue to be a drug-free workplace for all employees. But those are some of the policy changes for your review. If you have any particular questions, once again, please get those to me. This comes from the press that we utilize, and this is the largest one we've had since probably in the last 5 years, largest set of updates. But once again, nothing that's going to nothing that will change our operations.
Legislative report.
Legislative report is in your backup materials for review. Once again, nothing earth-shattering. The thing we're going to have to watch in Springfield is going to be the property tax shift. Or I'm sorry, the property tax freeze. And the property tax freeze, most of the preliminary discussions are linked to the adequacy. If you're below 100% adequacy, according to the Illinois State Board of Education, you would be exempt from that freeze. And us at 67% or whatever it may be, we're a long way away. So that wouldn't impact us. That's the discussion. You never know what it's going to be when it finally gets to the table, but that's the discussion right now. So we'll continue to follow that. Pension shift for us right now would be manageable, and it just determines the talk now of the pension shift would be to put additional money into the funding formula that would go directly to the districts. If that's the case, great. But those are the 2 items that we'll continue to monitor as things get going once they get back down to Springfield in January. But those are the two most pertinent items, I think, to our finances.
I know we've done this, but are you doing any enhanced contingency planning based on primarily the potential tax freeze?
We could certainly do some more 5-year financial forecast.
We can do a forecast with a freeze, and Brad and I have a list. Shift would be fine, Aaron. The freeze is the big one because that's compounding in a forever. And I quite honestly don't know how districts would continue to
I don't know if it was Debbie Downer thing, we just had a gentleman up here talking about our current bond refunding to help stave off some of the property tax increase. You get a property tax freeze on top of that, when we're probably stepping into that next arena. Ain't that tighter. So that's why it's probably time for us to really take a hard look at what we're staring at from an operational perspective.
We have to remember we are, in our 5 we have $4 million in capital projects, which is still where we need to be, but aggressive. We would certainly be able to do that. We put back into our textbook budget. I mean, we can provide a list where we're millions ahead. You're right, Joe. It's just good to have it on paper. Yep.
So that we're talking about it in anticipation after the fact.
Yep, we'll have a list ready.
But we're going to be going into the time, capital projects is what, February, March? February? And we're going to be
right around that time.
When do they go back into something?
28. End of
January or something, 22nd.
District reports.
Nothing new to report.
Any other district business? Any correspondence? None at this time. There will be no closed session this evening.
Correct.
With that, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And adjourned.
There was a